Hello, my name is Laura Miller, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the one my family chose to overlook. The laughter came hardest the night my sister Susan banned me from her wedding, sliding an invitation across the table with my name crossed out, as if I were nothing but a family joke. That humiliation cut deeper than any words, but I swallowed it. What no one knew was that I was already charting my own course. They didn't just uninvite me. They laughed as if my existence was a family joke. The sound circled the table like a spark racing through dry grass, each chuckle catching until the room burned with amusement that wasn't mine. Crystal chimed against porcelain knives set down too loudly, silver flashing under the chandelier. I kept my eyes on the card in front of me, cream paper gold edging and a single deliberate line striking through my name. The ink was still glossy, as if the decision had been fresh, as if they wanted me to notice the precision. Susan raised her glass. Her smile was perfect, manicured like the roses in the centerpiece. "We just want everything cohesive," she said, as if cohesion required my absence. Her tone was sugar but carried the weight of law. My mother leaned closer, pearls trembling against her collarbone. "You understand, Laura? It's her moment. We can't risk distraction." My father cleared his throat, already signaling the conversation was finished before it had even started. Around us, relatives smiled with the practiced ease of those who knew their place. I wanted to ask what kind of distraction they thought I was: the wrong dress, the wrong face, the wrong daughter. But the words would have given them more than they deserved. Instead, I let the silence stretch, marking the rhythm of forks, the hiss of the air conditioner, the way my champagne glass quivered in my hand. The card was heavier than paper should be. I folded it once, the crease sharp. "Interesting handwriting," I said quietly, my gaze still on the ink. "Who had the honor?" Susan tilted her head, feigning pity. "We discussed it as a family. It was unanimous." Unanimous. That word cut deeper than the line itself. My father lifted his glass again. "A toast," he said briskly. "To Susan and a perfect day." They all rose. Glasses clinked. The chandelier hummed. I raised mine too, not in agreement but in restraint. The champagne stung more than it soothed. Childhood memories slipped in: uninvited Susan on the piano bench, me holding the metronome. Susan in photographs, me pushed toward the edge. Susan's victories announced like royal decrees, mine treated as minor weather. Tonight was only the official seal on what had always been true. Susan leaned closer, her voice low enough that only I caught it. "You'll never belong at my table." Her breath smelled faintly of victory and wine. I rose slow enough to keep the chair from scraping, deliberate enough that they all noticed. The folded card slipped into my bag with a neat whisper. I met no one's eyes because none of them deserved mine. Then I'll build my own. Banished from their banquet, I turned toward the harbor, my exile becoming my foundation. My rented office faced the water through a narrow window pane, peeling air unit rattling. Beyond it, the cranes moved like patient animals, lifting containers with a rhythm steadier than any family vow. The room smelled of stale coffee and printer toner. Phones rang constantly, louder than the doubt in my head. My whiteboard was crowded with roots and deadlines. A phrase in the corner kept me steady: "Don't drown." I almost did. A port permit came back, rejected, a red stamp glaring up like a verdict. Hours of calls left me stuck in a loop of music and recordings. By the time someone picked up, they passed me to another desk that was empty. Frustration sat like a stone in my chest. "Rough morning?" a voice asked. Michael Turner leaned against the doorframe, tall, calm, his navy polo marked with a cruise line logo. He noticed the form, shook his head, and slid his phone across my desk. "You're using last quarter's version." They buried the new clause in a footnote. I typed quickly, sent it off. Minutes later, the approval arrived. Relief nearly broke through my composure. "You just rescued me," I admitted. He grinned. "Tell them Turner asked for an expedited review next time." Then he was gone, leaving behind the trace of someone who moved easily in a world that kept tripping me. That evening, Anna arrived with a box of trust documents. We sat on the floor, pages spread like maps of a territory I no longer recognized. In 2016, they slipped in a clause, she said, tapping the margin. Trustee may withhold disbursement in the interest of family reputation. Vague enough to punish you for existing. So they wrote me out without saying my name. Anna's eyes sharpened. But vagueness cuts both ways. Courts hate it. I didn't plan to fight yet. I folded the knowledge away sharp as a knife in reserve. Weeks passed. The office filled with signs of progress, hard hats on hooks, neon straps coiled near the door, invoices pinned crookedly. At night, I walked the pier memorizing ships by silhouette. Michael crossed my path often in the corridor at the dock, once handing me the only clean mug in the break room. "You look like you're balancing 6 plates," he said. "That's because I am." He laughed, and for the first time I believed I might endure. At the Global Shipping Summit, the moderator unexpectedly passed me the microphone. My voice steadied as I spoke of lost seconds, trucks idling, forklifts with flat tires, cranes slowed by glare. Small inefficiencies were a tide invisible until counted. When I finished, applause broke out, hesitant at first, then stronger. A journalist asked for my card. A port manager wanted to visit my office. Recognition, fragile but real, landed like oxygen. In the corridor, a reporter asked, "Are you related to the Miller family?" The pause was deliberate, one heartbeat only. "I stand on my own name." His pen moved quickly. I walked away before he could pin me back to them. That night, dusk turned the harbor windows silver. My inbox carried small victories, rates, accepted shipments confirmed. I reached for the light switch as my phone buzzed. The message glowed cold and sharp, Susan's words slicing through the quiet. "Don't think this changes anything." When Susan boasted about her ballroom, I quietly charted a course for the open sea. June warmed the bay until the docks glittered like a necklace. We chose a modest restaurant where windows watched the water and conversation paused for passing wakes. Michael studied the harbor as if syncing its pulse to mine. When the plates arrived, grilled snapper bread to tear, he drew out a small velvet box with a movement so careful it cut the noise. "I don't have the perfect speech," he said, eyes steady. "But I have the right question." The ring held the last light of dusk. "Will you build the rest with me, whatever it looks like?" My yes was simple, anchored. He slid the ring on. The metal was cool and factual. I pictured the card in my drawer, my name struck through with neat ink. One circle closing, one line refusing to erase me. He saw the shift. "What do you want for a wedding? Not what would please them, what would fit you." "Space," I said. "Sky. Water. Nothing they can choreograph." We spoke like logisticians, weather routes, contingencies, and by the check we were decided a luxury cruise, vows under open air, a horizon for a ceiling. The next day, I met Anna in her neat rectangle of law. She slid a printout across the desk like a bad X-ray. "Old email," she said. "Buried on a backup server your father forgot. Subject: re-guest list purge. Body Laura is nothing but a parasite. I'll never let her stand beside me." The word felt theatrical at first, then sharp. I noted the timestamp, the recipients, the IP in the footer, the way a blade prefers precision. My family's story of me, needless lesser, sat there wearing punctuation. "We can do something with it," Anna said softly. "Even if you never file it, counters their fiction." "Not yet," I said. "Timing matters." She nodded. "Then I'll lock it down and keep digging." On the way home, I stopped at the pier. Cranes stood blue-black. A gull lifted like punctuation from a bollard. I touched the ring and tried to reconcile its gleam with that black line through my name. Two truths waiting for a third to break the tie. My phone vibrated. "Laura, it's John Carter." Years ago, a supplier collapsed mid-shipment, stranding his product in 3 ports, while investors circled like weather. Susan was supposed to rescue the deal. She turned it into a glossy memo and a vanished deadline. I rerouted freight, bullied a second-tier carrier into an overnight slot, and delivered on the edge of failure. You saved me when your sister wouldn't, he said now, blunt as an invoice. Heard you're getting married. I am. Then let me stand where your family should have, he said. I owe you. I want to be there when you take your vows. A laugh escaped, less humor than pressure, leaving a sealed jar. We're doing it on a ship, I said. Seems right. Even better. Send the date. I'll be on deck. At home, I opened the drawer and unfolded the crossed-out invitation. The crease had softened. I set it beside the ring line and circle insult and promise, two small objects arguing about me. Tea steamed on the table as I opened my laptop. Anna's message waited with the attachment. I read Susan's sentence again and felt the wound relocate, not in me, but in the story I'd let them write over me. I saved the file, created a new folder, and named it with strategy instead of anger. Evidence is ballast. You don't wave it in fair weather, you keep it low until the sea turns. I pictured a deck bright with lights, music carrying over water, John Carter among the faces where blood had left a blank space. Somewhere outside, a horn sounded long, certain, announcing itself past the breakwater. I sat a while listening to the apartment breathe, the fridge ticking, pipes settling, the city a soft hush behind the glass. On the counter lay the ribbon from the ring box. I looped it once around my finger. Outside, the tide turned slow, almost untheatrical. I label the email folder for the right moment and close the laptop. They barred me from their banquet hall, so I vowed my vows beneath a canopy of stars. August warmed the sea until the ship glided like a lit city lantern strung along the rails, as if the constellations had come down to witness. The string quartet tuned softly. Salt and resin scented the wind. When I stepped onto the upper deck, guests rose together, not commanded, simply certain. The violin swell met my footsteps and carried me forward beneath the deepening sky. Michael stood at the bow edge of the ceremony, space posture, sure, eyes steady. Our vows were plain, no florals, no gilded promises, only words we could lift in a storm. Yes felt heavier than the ring, like a signature the ocean itself countersigned. The sea took the sound and broke it gently against the hull. Inside the reception hall, chandeliers scattered light across glass and water until room and ocean layered over one another. We danced once, laughed once. The quartet slid into a slow waltz. Then John Carter rose. He didn't ask for attention. He collected it. The microphone found his hand. He spoke of collapse. A supplier gone dark, cargo frozen in 3 ports. Investors looping like storm bands. It was Laura, he said, who rerouted freight, negotiated through weather, and delivered when no one else cared. When others shut the door, she opened one at sea. For a beat, the deck held its breath. Then the applause began, first a ripple, then a tide striking the boards. Phones lifted in bright constellations, lenses flashed, 100 small red lights blinked record. Somewhere a guest sobbed into a napkin. I stood and did not shrink. The name Miller rolled through the speakers, and for the first time nobody turned toward Susan. They turned toward me. The quartet smiled without breaking tempo. Crew members paused by the railings, grinning like co-conspirators. John lifted his glass toward our table in a salute that felt like restitution, not charity. I saw it then, the deck, as my banquet table, broad enough for every witness I'd been denied. Optics rewrote themselves in real time, the story reframed in a lens I finally chose. Anna watched from the edge, calm as a lighthouse. In her clutch sat a neat folder, the email printed like a fuse that didn't yet need a match. Michael squeezed my hand beneath the tablecloth, and the anchor that had lived in my chest for months shifted lighter by degrees. Out beyond the glass, the sea combed the starlight into silver threads. The ship's wake unspooled like ribbon, tying this night to whatever came next. Guests pressed in with congratulations. Strangers offered toasts that sounded like sworn statements. A reporter asked where I learned logistics. On the water, I said, and the answer felt like a life condensed. Cameras kept catching fragments, the ring flashing as I lifted a glass. The crew cutting cake with a sailor's knife, my laugh breaking mid-song. Clips flew ashore faster than gulls. I pictured living rooms lit by their glow, the late-night scroll, stopping at our vows, at John's sentence, at my face steady under chandelier light and open sky. A reversal isn't always loud. Sometimes it's simply undeniable. The music shifted brighter. The deck swayed with the easy rhythm of calm seas. I walked to the rail and let the wind lift my veil. Below, the water answered in soft percussion. Behind me, the applause rose again, thunder made of hands and history. I breathed, and the air tasted like metal and citrus and freedom. The night seemed to lean closer, as if the horizon itself wanted to hear. The crowd rises, clapping thunderously, echoing across the deck. For the first time, the Miller name is associated not with Susan but with me. My phone buzzes, a message from Susan appears on screen. "Please, I need to talk to you." Justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it settles like the tide, steady, silent, undeniable. September light rinses the kitchen white. Through the Charleston windows, waves hush and return a breath I can borrow. A mug warms my palms while the phone on the counter flickers with missed calls stacked like crates. Mom, Dad, Susan, cousins. Voicemails blink red, a harbor of voices crowding to dock. I play the first, my mother's tremble. "We're proud of you now, sweetheart. Please let us back in." The second is my father, firm, slipping into pleading. "It got away from us. Optics, never mind. Family matters. Call us." I sip and let the tide answer. On the counter, my laptop waits, hinge bright as a horizon. Months ago, when Anna found that email, I whispered the only strategy that saved me: timing matters. That moment passed on a deck under stars, John's microphone, truth louder than any gavel. The next message is Susan's. At first, only breath. Then, everyone compares me to you. I need my sister back. Please. The word please sounds borrowed, a tourist in a language she never learned. No heat rises. Pity isn't the point. Closure isn't either. I open the laptop. Morning slides across the floorboards. Gulls annotate the air. The folder waits for the right moment. I click. The screen blooms. Laura is nothing but a parasite. I'll never let her stand beside me. I hover over forward. I picture the arc: a note to a reporter, another to a board member, a final to my parents' friends. The story would flatten into fact, clean, cold, irreversible. The cursor waits. The wave breaks and returns. I see the ring, the bows, John's sentence, reframing the name Miller. If I press send, it's swinging after the bell. The verdict already sounded in applause. The phone skitters across the table. I turn it face down. The glass throws back a bar of sun. Years I mistook silence for stones. Today, silence is a tool, boundary, choice, instrument. Footsteps soften the doorway. Michael crosses the tile, hair damp, shirt half buttoned. He reads the email, the call log, the way my thumb hesitates. The kettle ticks like a metronome. Even the house waits for my decision. Now Michael says gently, "You don't owe them an answer." I turn my phone face down and whispers, "They once thought my silence was weakness. Now it's my verdict." I close the email, then the folder, then the laptop hinge clicking like a seal in wax. I stand at the window and watch the water draft its endless lines. Chairs I was denied, replaced by a deck wide enough to seat whoever truly shows up. Somewhere my name is still moving through rooms that once said only Susan's. Somewhere else my parents practice sentences that arrive late. "We're proud. We're sorry. We were wrong." I breathe salt air that tastes like metal and citrus, and the first clear hour after a storm. I step onto the balcony. Sunlight floods my face. Behind me, the phone buzzes one more time, ignored. The waves keep rolling in timeless. I've walked through betrayal, silence, and the slow work of reclaiming my dignity. Now, I want to hear from you. Share your thoughts with me in the comments. What would you have done if you were in my place? Tell me if you believe silence can be stronger than words. And if my story resonates, stand with me by subscribing so you never miss what comes next. Together we can remind each other that strength often hides in the quiet choices.